Hello, Internet. Hello, world. Hello, data and analytics professionals. Welcome to another episode of CDO Matters Live. This is the place where data and analytics people come, third Friday of every month, to have a conversation about stuff that's going on in our world. I will be your facilitator, your moderator. I'm Malcolm. I'm the CDO of Profisee software. We make MDM software. If you think you have needs for master data management, if you got questions about master data management, we would be thrilled if you consider Profisee. But hey, just send me a DM on LinkedIn. Send me a message and say, hey, I've got questions about master data management. If you got questions about master data management, put them in the chat. Wherever the chat is. If you're on LinkedIn, maybe below. If you're on Goldcast, it's somewhere over there, maybe. If you got questions about MDM, throw them into the chat. That's what I'm here for. This is, in essence, an Ask Me Anything session. Happy Friday, everybody. Whitefish, Montana. Hello, Jennifer. So cool. I actually spent a night in the jail of Flathead County once when I was a young buck and did stupid stuff when I was skiing. What's the mountain? Big Sky, Big White, Big Sky. Keep me honest. But no, true story, Jennifer. I actually did spend a night in jail in Flathead County once. I was at a place, I don't know if it exists anymore. I was at a place called Moose McGillicuddy's, and I was very young and very stupid. And I wandered out under the street with an open container of alcohol, and the police approached me. And what did I do? I ran. And it was icy and snowy, and I was in cowboy boots. And it wasn't a good combination. And that's what ended up putting me in jail for the night, where I probably belonged, frankly, and where it was okay. And then they let me bail myself out after a little fine for having an open container and being a dumb idiot. The next morning, they drove me back to my hotel. So there you have it. Whitefish, beautiful part of the world. My gosh, if you've never been to Glacier International Park, you got to get up there. Yeah, really, really cool part of the world. Big mountain. Yes. Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a while. Now, I'm old now. See all this gray hair? That would have been in my really early 20s. Early 20s, but yes, so I'm from Alberta, just north. Was a competitor skier all through my teen years. Loved to go skiing. We'd just gone down for a ski trip. That's my history there. Sorry, everybody's like, "Hey, man, we came for the data, not to hear about your criminal record." But anyway, so glad you could join today. Who else? Rajan, hello. Lee, nice to see you. Glad you could meet. Banff is beautiful. Yes, it is. I was married in a place called Canmore, which is right outside of Banff. Another amazing part of the world. But yeah, if you're in the mountains, you gotta go. You've got to go both to Alberta and Montana. Different vibes, slightly different vibes, but yeah, same part of the world and incredibly amazing. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Happy Friday. Hey, it's a Friday before a long weekend here in the USA and in North America. Canada does Labor Day. I think Europeans do that mostly on May Day, like the celebration of labor, like the hey, we acknowledge labor. I think that's May Day for our friends over in Europe. So, do you have a long weekend in Europe? I mean, you have bank holidays like every 2 weeks, so maybe you do. I don't know. If you don't, well, unfortunate, but let's be honest, if you are in Europe, particularly the UK, you have way more holidays than we have here in the US, way more. So this is the one situation where us in the US get to gloat a little bit if you don't have the Monday off. So I'm kind of excited. It's a long weekend. Hip, hip, hooray. Today, we are going to talk about overlap in data management solutions. Buckle your seatbelts because this is going to get confusing. It's a confusing space. I'm going to do my best to try to bring some clarity to all of the confusion. So we'll start talking about that in a little bit. This is usually the time where I just say hello to everybody, ask where everybody is coming from today. Looking. Smeety, hello. Minhaj, hello. Fanny, hello. Adam, hello. Keith, hello. Mike, Eduardus, hello. Lee, you're with Apogee. That's cool. I was an Apogee customer at 2 companies ago at Dun and Bradstreet, I believe. Just looking at all the folks who are here, looking at the chat. Hi, hello from Orlando, or Hal. Good grief, my eyes. That's what these are for. Yeah, that's an L, not an I. Hey, Carrie from, or Kari, or Carrie. I'm Canadian, so I say a hard A by default. Carrie. My apologies. So glad you could be joining from Tampa. And we've got Hal from Orlando. We've got it covered, folks, because like there's Tampa, Orlando, and I'm in Melbourne. So I'm directly across from Tampa on the peninsula. Although it's not easy to get to Tampa. You got to go to I-4 and just even thinking about the drive in and around Disney gives me like PTSD. You probably know what I'm talking about. Hey, Dan, glad you could be joining from the Garden State. So glad you could be joining. Happy Friday, Dan. New Haven, Mike. What's up? That's New Haven is Yale, right? Yeah, I think so. Elliot, hello. UK in the house. I will be in London in 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks Monday for a Big Data London. Totally excited about that. I will be speaking at Big Data London. Totally excited about that. So, Mike, Elliot, my apologies. Elliot, if you are in and around London, it's free to go to Big Data London. That's why there's 25,000 people going. You may want to consider it. Jurek, hello. Poland, hello. Without a long weekend, sorry. We have actually some team members in Poland. Definitely a place where I need to get to. I've not yet been to Poland. So I need Phoenix. Rajan, hello. Amplify. Oh, Elliot, are you with Amplify? I didn't know that. I've worked with Amplify many times in the past. Used to speak to folks out of Toronto when I was a Gartner analyst out of Toronto, Dallas. Had some folks there. I want to say that there was somebody I spoke to regularly from Amplify who was in Florida. But hey, great company, great consultants. If you need help implementing a data strategy, data governance, MDM, Amplify is a great choice. Christopher, hello. Gothenburg, Sweden. So Christopher, so glad you could make it. Are you going to be going to the FabCon conference in Stockholm in 3 weeks? So Microsoft is doing the European version of something they call FabCon, FabricCon. Profisee will be there. I will not, because I'll be at Big Data London the week before. So that week of FabCon, I will be recovering. But if you have the opportunity to get to Stockholm, to FabCon, I recommend it. My friends from Microsoft will be doing a day-long data governance kind of workshop. I did that workshop a few months ago in Boston. It was a great use of a day, really, really great use of a day. So if you have the opportunity, check it out. Oh, cool. You are going. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I think that'll be a good use of your time. What else is going on? Who else is hello. I think we covered it. Oh, hello, Albert. Don't believe I said hello before. So anyway, happy Friday, as we say here in the South. Y'all, happy Friday, y'all. I've actually quite taken to that phrase. It's funny. When I was growing up in Canada, I used to hear people say y'all. It's like, oh, definitely, kind of that's being lazy. Like, yep. Now that I'm here, I say it all the time, and it is being lazy, but it's highly effective. And I like it. I say y'all all the time. So I've been in the US and the South now for my entire time in the US. I've been technically in the South, and I guess I'm Southified because I say y'all all the time. I find it a highly effective phrase. Cutting 2 words, you all, down into one. Yeah, it works. I'm going with it. If anybody has anything they want to talk about today, please throw it into the chat. Whether you're on LinkedIn, and again, you may have heard this in the past if you joined me in the past, where I haven't quite, because apparently I'm technology challenged. I haven't quite figured out how to actually be in the LinkedIn live event while also being in our video recording platform. The interactions there are really wonky, and LinkedIn is like several seconds behind. And I look at that video and I see a different Malcolm at a different time, and it just makes my head start going like that. So I'm talking to you through our video recording platform, not through LinkedIn, although you're viewing it on LinkedIn. So if I'm not immediately saying hello on LinkedIn, forgive me. And if you're chatting on LinkedIn, forgive me. I will get to your questions. But if you do have specific questions, guys, and you came with them, you're like, I want this data expert to answer this question, please throw it in the chat. All right. Without further ado, what does that even mean? It's a French word, adieu. What does that mean? Without further ado, without further time wasted? I don't know. I'll have to ask ChatGPT about that. Let's not waste any more time and babbling, and let's get to the heart of the subject here. Okay. What do I mean by, let's start first about what is a data management solution? I take a bit of an old school approach here, and I see data management through the lens of 4 kind of swim lanes, as it were. Data quality, MDM, data integration, I'm just hitting my mic, and let's call it data catalogs / data governance / metadata management. The names are evolving here. So I see data management as those 4 things. Okay. My old employer, Gartner, and if there's anybody from Gartner watching this subsequently, maybe they'll watch it after the fact. They're probably not watching now because they're all heads down in these things called client inquiries, where they're talking to CIOs and CDOs, which is what I did every day for 3 years. They're probably not watching this now, but if you watch the recorded version and you're in the data and analytics team at Gartner, guys, please, we've got to get this figured out. 4 years ago, things were relatively clear and straightforward, at least from a Gartner perspective. And I will mention Gartner consistently today because I would argue, maybe I'm biased because I used to work there, but I would argue they set kind of the gold standard for defining what each of these software products look like, the critical capabilities, as it were, that each of these software competencies, disciplines need to support. So Gartner says, hey, these are the 10 things you need to do in order to be considered MDM. These are the 10 things you need to do in order to be considered data quality, and on and on. I consider Gartner the gold standard here. Vendors generally, not exclusively, not always, but vendors generally align to those critical capabilities. Going back about 4 years, Gartner started to basically kind of dismantle the foundation of these 4 pillars and really started to change its perception in the market. What Gartner saw, which was an accurate perception, and I was there at the time, what Gartner saw was those 4 pillars: data quality, master data management, data catalogs, data integration. What Gartner saw was those 4 things were starting to converge, right? They had always had overlapping capabilities, always. MDM does a little bit of data quality, right? MDM does a little bit of data integration. MDM does a little bit of metadata management. Data quality, same thing. Data integration, same thing. The Venn diagram here, I tried to draw this out in advance of this session. I tried to draw the Venn diagram and have it make any sort of visual sense whatsoever, and I really couldn't. I failed at it. But to make a long story short, there are significant areas of overlap within all 4 of these competencies, of these swim lanes. There's significant areas of overlap with some nuancy differences. And we'll talk about those a little bit more. But what Gartner saw was those 4 things were starting to come together. There were some smaller vendors. The large vendors historically had picked one of the lanes, right? Profisee picked MDM. We are best of breed MDM solution. Elation and Calibra picked kind of data catalogs, data governance, and they largely stay in those swim lanes. I would argue maybe a MuleSoft or a Fivetran or other Boomi, for example, picked integration. Talent, another one, largely picked integration. So the vendors had kind of picked the lane that they wanted to be in. And each of them, in order to grow their customer sets in order to enrich their capabilities, slowly build capabilities to kind of bleed into other areas, right? Where you had situations where like a Boomi would say, oh, well, we can support an MDM use case. I would argue they can't. Sorry, Boomi. I would argue they can't, but they added some capabilities around things like matching, right? Where maybe their capabilities were good enough from an MDM perspective, and Boomi would be able to capture a very small segment of the MDM market, right? Same is true maybe with a data quality tool where they start to build other capabilities and start to capture small segments of those markets. So you had situations where companies were arguably best of breed. This, let's just say the smaller companies in the space were arguably best of breed. And then you had the really, really big vendors like Informatica and Oracle and IBM that did everything. Informatica is a great example of this. They're going to do all four of those capabilities. And that's one of the reasons why for some companies, those large suite providers, and I'm not saying suite as in taste, SUITE, right? The suite of like these providers that have a full suite of solutions could say, hey, we got it all. We got every arrow in the quiver. You don't need to go and buy four things. You just need to buy one thing. But frankly, it's still four things. It's still four, but that's okay. Because they would be able to say, hey, these things all talk nice together. They all integrate deeply together, and there's single vendor, single platform. And there's pros and cons of each of those approaches, right? For some companies that want to work with a single vendor that tend to be extremely large companies, that's okay. And that was the right approach to have the single vendor. For a significant portion of the market, having a collection of best of breed solutions, like a Profisee, like a Boomi, like an Elation, and having those things was okay, right? And this is still largely the case within the market today. This is still largely the case where you have some significant portion of companies that prefer the suite approach and a significant proportion that prefer, too many P's, the best of breed approach. Do I know what that split is? I'd be willing to bet it's 40-60, 40% suite, 60% best of breed. That would be my rough guess based on the literally thousands of conversations that I had when I was at Gartner. But what Gartner said was, hey, all these things are coming together and the market is changing. So we need to start covering these things more holistically. Okay, fine. Kind of hard to argue that. But they set some wheels in motion starting in 2021 with a very kind of long-term view of what the future state would be and trying to kind of pivot some of their research coverage away from what they thought was the old approach to what they thought was going to be the new approach. And they basically kind of stopped halfway through. and I'm not trying to be overly negative, but it's just a fact. I'll give you a perfect example that I have intimate knowledge of. Gartner decided, hey, okay, MDM is evolving. It's becoming a very mature market. It's reaching what they're calling it's coming out of the trough and it's going into the path of enlightenment, right? It's coming out of the hype cycle and it's just becoming table stakes, right? This is MDM. This is the market. This is how Gartner views the market of MDM. And they said, well, MDM is kind of going away and we really don't need the magic quadrant. And the next iteration of MDM maybe looks something different. Maybe it's a part of some integrated broader suite. Maybe it's this thing called augmented MDM, which is heavily supported by AI. But MDM is changing and we need to change how we cover MDM. So let's do away with the old magic quadrant and we'll create a new one. Okay, great. Sounds good. They did away with the old one, but they didn't create the new one. So now you have a situation where there are literally thousands of customers of MDM software that are out there today, say Google searching, and I know they are because I just did the Google search and it was like popped up, critical capabilities of master data management solutions, expecting to be able to find Gartner research, and you cannot. Same is true with data catalogs. Go try to Google critical capabilities, data catalogs, magic quadrant, data catalogs. You won't find anything. The only things that you will find are data quality and integration. Because when it comes to metadata management, data catalogs, and when it comes to MDM, Gartner kind of got halfway through their transition to some future state and just kind of stopped. So you have a massive amount of confusion in the market. You have overlap of these capabilities. We'll talk about that some more. Significant overlap. You've got changes happening in the market that are ill-defined, I would argue. right? Yes, it's AI. Yes, maybe it is some customer demand for more of the suite, but I don't think so. I don't really think so. I don't think all of a sudden overnight that most companies out there said, "Hey, I want to do away with my investments in data quality and data integration. I just want to go buy this one Swiss Army knife that does everything," because we've tried that before. It was called Siebel, right? Like we've tried the one solution to rule them all. And it doesn't work so well. When you try to build everything into one thing and it becomes this giant monolith of capabilities, it doesn't work so well. It doesn't work so well for the end user. It doesn't work so well for the companies that are building that stuff because they get big and they get slow and they get complicated. So I don't think it's the case that all of a sudden customers like the CDOs, I don't think it's the case that all of a sudden they woke up one day and said, "Hey, I want a Swiss Army knife that does everything." Some, of course, some, the 40% that has always wanted that type of solution. But I don't think the other 60% started to wake up and said, "Hey, I need a Swiss Army knife," right? And I need to do away with my investment in, a data catalog to go buy some Swiss Army knife that does everything. That's certainly not the case. So you have a large portion of the market that needs guidance on what the heck's a data catalog? What are the unique capabilities that define a data catalog? What's the difference between a data catalog and active metadata management? If you can tell me, you win a prize. So you have the market asking all these questions, and they're valid questions because I hear them every day when I'm out at conferences. All these questions, and if you try to get this, even if you're paying for a Gartner subscription, right, which is a decent chunk of money, even if you are, and you're trying to ask these questions, you cannot get them answered. You could probably go try to talk to a Gartner analyst. It'll take some time for you to wait to talk to them. And what you will hear is probably something to the effect of, "Well, we at Gartner separate governance from management. And governance and management are two different things. Governance is policy setting. Governance is an inherently a business-driven enterprise," which I would argue is the case. We would like it to be that, but it's not. Gartner would say, "Oh, it's this inherently business-driven enterprise," right? And management is where you're setting policies, governance policies, and management is this world where you're executing the policies. And theoretically, I agree with that. And that's fine as a theoretical construct. Management definition of policies versus enforcement of policies. That's fine. But if you still try to ask, okay, how do these things fit together? What is your guidance in terms of the solutions that I should be buying in the market right now? All I see over and over and over again is data catalogs. Where does this fit? If you ask that question to Gartner, what you'll get is this academic answer of, "Well, there's data catalogs are a business enabled thing, and that should really be about all the business. And that's where they access the data products, and the business will be defining glossary items, and the business will be defining the data elements and objects." And that's fine. That's fine. But tell me what the critical capabilities are. Help me evaluate vendors in the space, because that's not what I'm hearing from the vendors, right? That's not what I'm hearing from the vendors. So, boy, if anybody from Gartner is watching this, please, can we figure out how to answer the question of, do you have a magic quadrant for data catalogs? Do you have a magic quadrant for master data management? Because you need them, because the market is asking for them and the market is really confused. I'm confused. And I used to write this research. My name is on the last MDM Magic Quadrant document, and I'm confused. So that's my urging to my ex-employer to try to get this stuff figured out. I'm going to end my rant and just see if anybody's got any questions. And I'm going to attempt to share a Excel spreadsheet. It may not turn out very good, but we'll give it a whirl. Just looking to see if anybody new has joined. Jerk, hello. Glad you could make it. Hello, Tom Ara. I know who you are. I'm gonna give this a whirl. I'm gonna try to share a spreadsheet. Bear with me. First, I have to figure out how to do that. not my entire screen. Oh, is that it? No, that's not it. Ooh, I think this is it. Okay. If I end up sharing like my Outlook, you'll get to see all of my boring email. Okay. Here's my best across all these 4 swim lanes. Again, significant areas of overlap. Data quality, first column, MDM, catalogs, third column, data integration solutions, fourth column. Of the words here, and hopefully you can read them. Each of the words here represent what I would argue are unique capabilities. These capabilities, in the case of data quality, are being defined today by Gartner. There's something called the critical capabilities for data quality. They don't call it data quality, they call it augmented data quality. That's fine. And really all that means is when you hear Gartner say augmented something, that means it's that thing plus AI. And everything's going to have AI. Everything already does have AI. So I question the utility of calling something augmented data quality, but it doesn't matter. So first column, these things are today, Gartner says these are the critical capabilities of data quality solutions. Active metadata support, the ability to, which is the ability to apply data quality methodologies to active metadata. Separate conversation of what's metadata, what's active metadata versus passive metadata. This is another area where Gartner is really confusing the market. But that aside, the ability to apply normalizations, transformations to metadata. So of course, that's kind of like table stakes, data quality stuff. Data lineage. Yes, increasingly data quality tools are displaying data lineage. Often that's coming from a catalog, but there are some vendors out there that have the capability to understand lineage. Transformations, of course, right? It started as this, I need to make it this thing. Matching, linking, merging, profiling and monitoring of data, rule discovery, creation, and management, data quality rules, quite obviously. Usability goes without saying. Workflow and issue resolution. This is basically stewardship. I would argue that the stewardship in a lot of data quality tools is pretty light and pretty lacking, but that's cool. Still a critical capability. Obviously, integration, you got to be able to load this data into Data Quality Hub. And then some loose idea of data governance. I would argue everything we just described is data governance. Here's another area where things are very, very confusing. And if there's one thing that you take away from today, it's this. There is no one solution for data governance. Even though data catalog vendors will say we're a data governance tool, I'll repeat, there is no one solution for data governance. Data governance is 2 things: policy definition, policy enforcement. There's no one thing that does both of those. On the enforcement side, you could argue a CRM system plays an important role in enforcing data governance rules. An ERP system plays an important role in enforcing data governance rules. There is no one solution for data governance. Data governance includes things like defining your master data objects. It includes things like enforcing data quality rules. It includes things like access management. So data governance is across multiple tools, and there will never be a vendor that will sell you all data governance things. However, is supporting data governance a critical capability of data quality tools? Yes, it is. Absolutely. But it is a subset of a much broader superset. That is true with every single one of these 4 swim lanes. Another thing you should take away. Their data governance capabilities within each of these 4 swim lanes, within each of these 4 capabilities or 4 disciplines, is a subset of a broader superset of data governance capabilities. So another thing to keep in mind, all of these support data governance. Notice there is no yellow highlighting here. The yellow highlighting represents at an extremely high level where those capabilities are arguably unique to that individual competency, into that individual swim lane. So let's jump over to MDM. Does MDM support active metadata? Well, of course it does. Right? Like the managing quality and consistency and accuracy and trustworthiness of metadata is what MDM does. Check. Data transformations. Of course it does. It transforms data. Data quality, matching, linking, merging, creation of gold master records. Of course. Usability goes without saying. Workflow, yes. Stewardship, integration, loading. And I do have a highlight here, sync, because here's one thing that's different, but we'll continue. Data modeling, of course, MDM supports data modeling. Data governance supports multiple domains, multiple usage scenarios, multiple implementation styles, as it were, and hierarchy management. I did highlight two things here on the bottom because they are slightly unique to MDM, but I would argue there are two things that make MDM unique and incredibly valuable. One is the depth of the integration between MDM and its ability to integrate to operational systems. So you can set the rules and configure the rules, and you can enforce them in things like CRM and ERP. I would argue that is very unique in the space. Can you use other tools to try to do that? Yeah, you could cobble together data integration on top of data quality, maybe, to try to do it, but it's not a capability that's inherent to those tools. One of the knocks of data quality tools is that you can set rules and you can have exceptions and you can know when there's a problem with the data. But typically within data quality tools, resolving that problem, you need to go back to source to do it. Typically, you need to go back to the source to do it. MDM is unique in that it's got deep integrations into the operational systems and it's addressing DQ issues. It's addressing consistency and accuracy issues within the source, even at runtime. So this is something that makes MDM unique. I would also argue the data quality rules managed in MDM, particularly when it comes to matching and the creation of gold master records, the granularity of your ability to manage those here is far more. They're more granular rule management in MDM than you would ever get in a data quality tool. And the reason why is because data quality tools are really built for volume. They're built for scale, they're built for volume. And the more rules you throw at things, the longer those processes are going to take to run. It's just a hard fact. You can't throw 8 billion rules into a data quality hub and have the thing run very, very, very quickly. So typically what you'll see in data quality is the rules, the granularity of those rules are a little higher level. But in MDM, those tools are built for accuracy, consistency. They're built to support compliance and fraud, regulatory-driven requirements that require a far greater level of granularity when it comes to managing the rules. So those things, plus hierarchy management, make you MDM, I would argue, a unique and necessary piece of this puzzle. Can you hand roll MDM? Technically, yes, you could. I had a call with a client yesterday who was talking about, I want to hand build, I want to hand roll in a data engineering pipeline. I want to use some Python libraries for entity resolution, for data quality, for transformations. Okay, sure. But doing that at scale and doing that at a cost that would be competitive to what you can get from an off-the-shelf solution like a Profisee? No way. No way. Not even going to touch it. The cost of these solutions have been coming down and down and down. The value for money is going to be in an off-the-shelf solution. So this is what differentiates MDM. Now you notice on the data quality side, there's no yellow. Arguably, there are capabilities in other tools that all of the capabilities of data quality exist somewhere else. So then the question becomes, how do you get it in one place in one tool? So arguably, the only net value add of data quality, and I'm not trying to be negative to data quality vendors, but arguably the net value add to a data quality tool is that it's specifically focused on data quality and all the necessary capabilities are in one tool instead of smattered around in a whole bunch of tools. And there's value to that. Because if you had to go at a capability level, do integrations, deep integrations at a capability level, there's work to do that. So there's still value in data quality tools. I'm not trying to suggest that because none of their capabilities are truly unique, that there's no value there. However, data leaders, CDOs, VPs of data and analytics tend to have an antibody response to overlapping capabilities. As a data leader, as a business executive, we're in the technology space. We're kind of trained. We're like a heat-seeking missile, trying to find overlapping capabilities. And if you're trying to make a business case for your VP to buy a data quality tool, the first thing she or he is going to do is they're probably going to figure out what I'm showing you on the screen right now. And they're probably going to ask you, hey, why should we buy this thing? We got these capabilities other places. I hear this often when it comes to MDM. Hey, I can use Salesforce for MDM because it does some of this stuff. No. So same is true with data quality. Just because there's no capability that uniquely identifies it, characterizes it, defines it, doesn't mean there's no value there, because there's still value in having one place to go to get those capabilities. Does that make sense? I hope. New comments. Oh, we have questions. Yay. I'm probably going to have to throw on my glasses for this. I'm glad I'm not that vain. I mean, I'm vain, but I'm not that vain. Rocking the specs. All right. Kayla, data. Oh, thanks. Got a definition of data quality in the chat. Hal from Orlando. How about a one-stop shop, single product vendor for data governance? Yeah, no, it doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. At least not by how I define data governance. Data governance is policy definition, policy management, policy implementation, actually pumping those rules into something else, and then policy enforcement, right? So it's all those things. Like to me, like, and we can have a hair split around, oh, well, maybe we could separate, which my old employer is doing, is splitting hairs, trying to separate out policy definition. But I think doing all those things is part of an execution of a governance framework. And are you going to get that in one tool? No, sir, you're not. Hey, hello, Sharifat. So glad you could join. I think there's also the fact that drivers for different tools from different organizations are different. And everyone is trying to find a magic pill. What do you mean there's no magic pill? I'm still searching. There isn't. Sadly, there's no magic pill. And honestly, there are a reasonable number of vendors that are trying to sell you right now Swiss Army knives that do all of this. And say, hey, we got it all. And aren't necessarily what you would consider these legacy, forgive the word, but more established suite provider solutions like an Informatica, an Oracle, or an IBM. There are plenty of upstarts that are trying to do all of this. But when you do that, let's imagine you're a startup. Okay. Well, you don't even have to be a startup, but you're a relatively small company and you're trying to do all this stuff on the screen, and time and money and resources are limited. Well, how well are you going to do any one of these things? Right? Like it's just math. Right? Like if you're a relatively small software company and you're trying to do all this stuff, yeah, no, you're not. You're gonna struggle to do it well. Now, maybe for some use cases, I'll give you an example. Maybe for some use cases, doing it at 20 or 30% is good enough. I would argue that defines customer data platforms. And I'm not trying to knock customer data platforms. They're actually quite good at what they do. They do a little bit of integration. They do a little bit of matching. They do a little bit of very little data quality, but it's enough for marketing use cases. It's enough, right? So there are situations where vendors pop up, create Swiss Army knives that do some things, that do them reasonably well, right? And an entirely new software genres are born. Customer data platforms are a great example of that. Jennifer, what a wonderful question. How do we sell data governance in such a perplexing landscape? Well, the short answer to that is don't talk about technology, because the minute you start talking about technology, you're going to lose your audience. My audience tends to be technicians, and I love you all. Thank you for coming today. And I know that I'm comfortable. This is a safe space to talk about technology. But are you really talking about don't lead with technology, Jennifer. Don't lead with business enablement. Don't lead with data quality. Don't lead with data integration. All these things we know are huge problems. Don't get me wrong, right? We know data quality is a problem. We know we lack a single source of truth. We know we've got a spaghetti bowl of broken data pipelines, and we need to figure out how to better manage our data integrations and our data pipelines. We know all these things, but our business partners really don't look at the world that way. And they don't care about that stuff. And it's not that they're ambivalent, and it's not that they don't have sympathy. I'm sure they do, but they're out there selling. They're out there procuring. They're out there recognizing revenue. They're out there doing customer support. So how you sell MDM is around business enablement. How do you make the business run faster? How do you make it more efficient? How do you make better decisions? Right? Find a handful of use cases, Jennifer. Find a handful of use cases where people in the business are complaining a lot. And they're out there. They are out there. Generally, there's a handful of people who are complaining very, very loudly, right, about something they cannot do because of the state of the data. I guarantee you that sitting under that need is some problem that can be solved or helped significantly with better data governance. For example, I don't know a lot of sales organizations that don't have a target for cross sales, selling across a customer base. Customer buys product A, but they don't buy product, right? I don't know a lot of sales organizations that don't have a target to acquire net new logos. I don't know a lot of procurement organizations that don't have a mandate of driving down their supply costs. These are just some of the examples that we can focus on these use cases, find people who are complaining about that stuff, have conversations with them and ask, hey, what's going on? Well, in the case of my supply cost, I know I'm trying to execute contracts with our suppliers and I see the same supplier 5 times and we've got different rates across all of them. And we're paying different things for different amounts for the same thing across our divisions or across our locations. Oh, okay. Well, that sounds like we've got duplicated supplier data. How do we address that? Here's where the conversation moves from the conversation with the stakeholder, with the customer, to a conversation internally. And I guarantee you, data governance will be a part of it. Setting rules for how do we define a supplier, setting rules for who can create new suppliers within your procurement systems, and on and on and on. How you sell it is use words that the business cares about. Use business lingo. Focus on use cases. Focus on business enablement, not the back office stuff that only us passionate data people care about. Hopefully that answers the question. When you say, I mean internally. Yeah, I hope I got it. Mohana, hello. Most customers curiously ask the AI part to present the master data solution. Was this really helpful? Good question. Yeah, it's helpful. Let's separate when talking about AI, and I'll get back to the comparison of critical capabilities in a bit, but I do want to make sure that I address your question because that's the main reason why I'm here. AI plus MDM. There's really 2 different things we need to be thinking about. One is the augmentation of data management, right? Which is making it easier to manage master data. Augmenting, meaning automating, not fully automating, but just helping, assisting, as it were, assisting how we manage data. So there's AIs there, but there's also creating data products that can be used and consumed in AI-based systems, right? So those are 2 things. MDM can facilitate and help with both of, or AI can help with both of those, right? AI can most certainly help accelerate things like data modeling and suggesting data models. AI can help with things like maybe suggesting match patterns or attributes of records that we should be matching on, or even things like weightings of attributes within a customer record. You should weight this one at 10% and this one at 15%. These are examples where AI can certainly help. Profisee is working on this. Every MDM vendor is working on this. For example, one of the AI-driven capabilities in Profisee is that we can take a long, like 100-word description of a product. We can copy that out of a website. We can go poof, paste it into a single field into Profisee and use OpenAI to parse out all of the master data elements for that blob of text, right? So if and help you automate capturing data related to a product master or customer master. And there's other use cases I could talk about. I don't want to go too deep on Profisee, but the whole idea here is all the MDM vendors are working to integrate AI capabilities to make it easier to master data, as it were. Frankly, from a business value perspective, that's not going to get people in the business that excited. What will get them excited is being able to tell a story that, hey, we can actually be more confident about our ability to use copilots and chatbots because we're creating a curated, governed, mastered, stewarded gold master record, a master data product. I love saying master data product, by the way, because master data records are the ultimate data products. They're discoverable, they're curated, they're governed, they're managed. Great starting point if you like the idea of data products. Master data record is a great place to start. But I'll give you an example. Right now, today, If you are a Microsoft customer, for example, you can use a Copilot within Power BI. And you can run that Copilot and ask it questions about a Power BI report that are just unbelievable. Like unbelievable. Like what you can do in a Copilot experience on top of a Power BI report. If that Power BI report is consuming incorrect, untrustworthy, badly duplicated data, the conclusions that it is going to reach, the things it's going to tell you, probably aren't going to be that trustworthy. So that's one example of, okay, we're going to use copilots and chatbots as a way to accelerate AI adoption within our organization. And that's how most companies are going to be doing it, by the way. McKinsey reports that 70% of companies are using some form of Gen AI today. PwC says the number is about 73%. So nearly 3/4 of all companies are widely using Gen AI today. However, a recent New Vantage CDO survey said that only 5% of companies actually have customized Gen AI solutions in production. What does that say? 5% are doing data science. 5% are customizing, building, maybe fine-tuning. They're building smaller language models. They're doing something with Gen AI that is unique and novel that requires some pretty significant brain power and significant investments. The overwhelming majority of companies are using off-the-shelf chatbots and copilots. Git, Power BI, you name it. Microsoft is doing this incredibly well, but there's all sorts of copilots out there, right? If that copilot, in the case I gave one example of Power BI, is looking at data that is inaccurate and incorrect, you're going to have a problem. Your AI, your deployment of AI is probably going to have a hard time gaining traction because people look at it and they'll blame the copilot. They'll say that copilot was hallucinating. The copilot gave me incorrect answers. When the reality is that maybe you had 15 versions of the same thing in that Power BI report. So 2 different ways of looking at AI. Hopefully that answered the question. I just want to make sure that I don't miss any questions, given my growing visual impairment. Okay, so to tie off, when it comes to overlapping capabilities, because I still got it up on the screen, data catalogs, boy. So over the last 2 years, I would argue data catalogs have become the most hyped, most certainly of all these four. For sure, data catalogs are the most hyped. A lot of companies are rushing out to buy data catalogs. And again, we see significant areas of overlap here. The only thing that I can see that make them actually truly unique are the fact they offer data dictionaries and business glossaries, which is not like technically advanced at all. Like I could build a glossary in Excel. Most people probably are using Excel for the data glossaries, right? So there's those 2 things make them unique, but arguably like not a lot of technical skill required. So again, could you make the case to say, okay, I'm going to buy MDM, data quality and data integration, and I'm going to cobble these things together in order to facilitate, in essence, what looks like a data catalog? Maybe, but I probably wouldn't. Data catalogs are increasingly being and correctly viewed as a foundation, as a foundational layer. Now, if I was asked the question, well, that guy Malcolm said that data catalogs are a foundational element, which I believe them to be. Most certainly they are. I guess that means I should start there. If I had a choice of which of these 4 things to start with, should I start with the data catalog? I probably wouldn't. And why? Because just building a data catalog and saying, oh, well, I'm going to expose the data catalog to my business users, there's just not a ton of value there. There's just not. It's kind of like building a bit of a field of dreams and saying, okay, well, I'm gonna expose all of my reports in my data catalog. I'm gonna expose my APIs. I'm gonna build the glossaries. I'm gonna build a lineage and expose the lineage, and I'm gonna have all this stuff out there. And you turn it on and you expose it to your customers, and then all of a sudden nobody's using it, or the customers are asking a question about, why do I see 15 versions of customer? I search customer in the catalog and what I see makes no sense to me. I don't know what it is. It's all written in technical speak. Thanks for the data catalog, but I'm really not going to use it. Then what we see a lot of companies like, oh, well, hey, data literacy. We need us some data literacy because we turn the data catalog on and nobody knows what's in it. Let's get some data literacy and that's going to fix the problem for sure. No, it doesn't. This is my glib way of saying, hey, data catalogs are foundational. Wow, 15 minutes in and I'm already losing my voice. They're foundational. They're important. You need to know what's out there. You need to inventory everything. You need to know how data moves across your ecosystem. These things are important, but they're important to us. Data people. Data people. Are they important to business people? Yeah, no, not really. Not really. Not really. Once we figure out how to do data product management really well, once we figure out how to build data products, once we figure out how to expose those products in a way that are meaningful through a UI that is user-centric in its design, in ways that make sense to the customer, that are deeply integrated to customer workflows and processes, where I'm in Salesforce maybe, and I right-click on something and I can see a glossary definition of it. Not a data catalog, but something in Salesforce that's relevant to me as a sales user or a marketing user. Once we figure out some of those things, how to deeply integrate data that is sitting in the catalogs into the way that people work day in and day out, yeah, that's goodness. That's awesome. But simply turning on a catalog and saying, here you go, there's no value there. That said, if you've got 15 versions of a supplier and you can go down to one and you can make that supplier report accurate, you can make that customer report accurate, you can display an aggregated view of all of your open opportunities by customer within your CRM because you've created a single version of the truth for that use case. That's where I would start. That's where I would start. There's value in me looking at it today. 15 different suppliers, or one supplier replicated 15 times. I don't know what's what. My reports are completely unusable. Going from that to, Angel's saying, now I see a single consolidated performance report for this employee, or I see an entire view of our relationship with this customer. I see all open opportunities. I see all open support tickets. That's got value. Do that. Then you can concurrently do and drive value, get people excited. Then you can concurrently do the data catalog stuff. Data catalogs are foundational, important. They will be table stakes in the data and analytics ecosystem of the future. They will need to be there. But if you had to make a choice, I'd be finding ways to deliver business value as quickly as possible. Of all four of these, MDM jumps out to me because of those deep integrations to operational systems and because these problems are real at all companies today. And you can make a difference to your end users today. My 2 cents. I won't go deep into data integration. There's some things there that I think that uniquely define them. Being able to kind of build APIs on the fly, virtualize data on the fly. That's cool. Build streaming services. That's cool too. The short version of all this is that be very, very careful, folks. Let me stop sharing. How do I do that? Oh, it's the big red button that says stop sharing. If you get into a situation where your VP, maybe you are VP, maybe your VP says, hey, do I really need this thing? It's appropriate to be looking at a capability level of what it does. But also keep in mind here that having all of these capabilities in a single place, in a single workflow, in a single use case can be incredibly valuable. They certainly can be incredibly valuable. Just because there's overlap doesn't mean there isn't. Doesn't mean there isn't a use case. It doesn't mean there isn't a business justification to buy one of these things on their own. Now, you may find you are one of those 40% of companies that really wants all of these things from a single provider. In my experience, those providers tell a great story about how all these things, all these piece parts play nice together. They tell a great story there. But in my experience, making them integrate to each other is more work than almost everybody originally thinks that there will be to make these things work well together. So that's not to say there isn't value there. There most certainly is value there. But often, folks, that value will come with a price tag. If you don't have to spend a ton of money manually integrating these systems together because you've bought them from a single suite provider, well, the suite providers know that, and they know there's value there, and they're going to charge you more. That's cool. Okay, because there's value in that for me. There's also vendor lock-in. So there's puts and takes in everything here. There's puts and takes on everything. Oh, hey, Jennifer, bravo. We don't do data governance to people. We do it with people to help with it. Yes. Yes. I had an interesting post on LinkedIn yesterday. And it actually is probably like my last post, talking about one of the bigger problems I actually see, one of the bigger challenges, problems is a challenge with data governance, is that the people doing the work, the people doing all the work, data governance, are the ones that really aren't benefiting the most. Within an organization, the benefits of governance tend to be at higher levels of the organization. They tend to be at cross-functional, enterprise-wide. But the work is happening at ground level. It's the salesperson making sure that the information is correct on that new account they put into Salesforce. It is the customer service rep making sure that the information on that support ticket is correct, and on and on and on. That's work, right? Doing that requires work, but arguably the benefits aren't there. So there is a bit of a trade-off. There's a bit of a trade-off. It's interesting. And I think there's still a lot of work for us to figure out how to really make data governance hum at most organizations. I would argue, frankly, it's an uphill battle at a lot of organizations, but that's why I'm here. Bring your questions every third Friday of the month. I will happily answer them. Let me make sure that I just touch off on all the questions. Goggles. Oh, data observability. ShareFat. I'm fine with data observability. I mean, I think it's, I like the idea of having automation in tools that can tell me when my pipelines are going to fail. That's fine. I think data observability is we've made it a new thing, right? Because that's what we love to do in the data and analytics space. We've made data observability a new thing. But I would argue people who have been doing data engineering correctly for a long time have always been doing data observability. What's different is they slapped AI on top of it, could start doing some predictive modeling of when things will fail, which is okay, cool, and probably beyond the technical capabilities of most. So there's value there of data observability tools. And we need the pipelines to keep running. That's cool. I would be looking, though, data observability plus what I would argue is something called a fabric experience. I'm a huge believer in the data fabric. I did a podcast on this once called the Data Fabric Demystified. If you want to check out on CDO Matters, Data Fabric Demystified. I'm a huge believer in data fabrics. And I think the combination of data observability is basically like an MVP, minimum viable product, of a V1 of a data fabric type experience. You'll learn more if you check out that podcast episode. I'm really bullish on data fabrics. Data observability is fine, but it's not going to solve all of these use cases that I had on the screen. The data observability is not data quality. It's certainly not MDM. It's certainly not a data catalog. So data observability, that's fine. Want the pipelines to run. Don't want them to fail. Want to have some added automation on top of it with smart AI that's going to tell us when things fail. That sounds fine to me. I'm all for it. Want to make sure I cover all the questions. Any unique messages? All right, folks, we've got 1 minute. I will end here. Happy Labor Day. Hey, quick announcement. If you are in the Northeast, well, you could be anywhere in the world, quite frankly. Mark your calendars. The second week of December, Washington, D.C., I'll be at the Data Governance and Information Quality Conference, DGIQ, brought to you by our friends at Dataversity. Maybe you want to get a professional certification. Maybe you want to get CDMP certified. Great place to do it. DGIQ, Washington. I'll be delivering a keynote address. How cool is that? I'm totally stoked. Hope you can join. Hope you can keep joining. Thank you for coming out today. Have a wonderful and amazing, unbelievable long weekend. Thank you for supporting. supporting the CDO Matters community. I will see you on another CDO Matters Live sometime really soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Glad you could make it.